Welcome to Chapter 24, The Digital Revolution and Beyond. Computer technology has advanced at a staggering pace over the last 30 years. Well, needless to say, graphic design was forever changed by computer technology. By 1990, digital technology enabled one person operating a desktop computer to control most or even all of the functions in one process. Printing came to the desktop. Initially, there was some resistance to this new technology by many designers, but as it rapidly improved, as they say, resistance is futile. Computers gave greater control over the design and production process. In addition to this, the growth of cable and satellite TV inspired creative and technical advances in broadcast and motion graphics. Add on to this the rapid development of the internet and World Wide Web, and you have literally transformed how people communicate in a couple of decades. Computer graphics experimentation ripped through modern, postmodern, retro, eccentric, and explored electronic techniques to create an even more diversity of design. The digital revolution came to designers through several major companies during the 1980s. Apple Computer developed the Macintosh. Adobe Systems invented PostScript programming language, and Aldus created PageMaker, an early page layout program which used PostScript language to design pages on the computer screen. The PostScript description language let printers output text, images, and graphic elements, as well as determine their placement on the page. In 1984, Apple introduced the first generation Macintosh computer. You could interact with the screen via a mouse whose movement controlled a pointer on the screen. This is a picture of the first collection of desktop icons created by Susan Kerr and Bill Atkinson. Funny how it is a pictograph which allowed this new form of high-tech communication between man and machine. Apple released software applications for word processing and painting. Early bitmap fonts were designed by Susan Kerr of the Apple Computer Design Department. PostScript fonts are not just made up of bitmap dots, they are stored as electronic instructions and data. Typed characters are generated as outlines and then filled in as solid forms. These curves are called Bézier lines, named after the French mathematician who invented them, Pierre Bézier. Bézier curves can create complex shapes with smooth endpoints, making them useful for creating letter forms or, as you know them, vector graphics. Page layout programs made possible by PostScript language let the actual design of complete pages on screen. In 1985, Aldus introduced PageMaker software for the Mac. PageMaker could alter type size, choice of font, and column width and length. It integrated text with other elements such as rules, headlines, borders, and scanned pictures. Paul Brainerd, PageMaker's creator, coined the term, quote, desktop publishing, end quote, for this new way to create page layouts electronically. By 1990, the color-capable Mac II and improved software spurred a technological and creative revolution in graphic design as radical as the 15th century shift from hand lettering manuscripts to Gutenberg's movable type. An unprecedented expansion of design education and professional activity produced a larger field with more trained individuals. These new technologies let designers create unprecedented images and forms. There were, of course, people for and against the new technologies. Those who embraced it found the computer to be an endless supply of potential. Los Angeles designer April Greenman was one of those designers who was all in for this new technology. She explored the visual properties of bitmap fonts, layering, and the patterns and shapes made possible by this new technology. These are a couple of her very early results. A poster for the LA Institute of Contemporary Art was her first effort on a Macintosh computer, as seen on the left. She also designed this other graphic imagery for the Design Quarterly 1987. This poster was a collage made of digitized images that was output by a low-resolution printer. She played with capturing images from video and digitizing them. Then she layered images and integrated words and pictures as part of a single computer file. In 1984, Dutchman Rudy Vanderlands began to edit, design, and publish Emigre magazine in the San Francisco area. Originally, they wanted to present their unpublished works along with creative works of others. They named it Emigre because of the impact different cultures and environments have upon creative work. It became a medium of experimentation. Can you tell me why this magazine was so polarizing and popular at the same time? Art schools became important places for discussing theory and experimentation with computer technology. Catherine McCoy worked for Michigan's Cranbrook Academy of Art. She helped the program evolve into one where complexity, layering, vernacular, and validity of conventional rules was explored. This is an example of one of her works. It was a recruiting poster. Edward Fella was a Detroit designer who had worked with McCoy, and his experimental work became a major influence on a generation of designers. Here are a couple examples of his typographical compositions. By 1992, designers could achieve results identical to those of conventional working methods, and the promise of seamless on-screen color graphics was delivered. Programs such as Quark Express, Photoshop, Illustrator, and others energized designers' work through advanced computer graphics. Editorial designers for specialized magazines applied computer experimentation to their pages. David Carson chose to explore the expressive possibilities of each subject in each page and spread. He was an art director of various publications. He consistently flouted design conventions as seen in these layouts. His designs emerged from the content and subject matter he was examining, so he paid close attention to bringing harmony between content and design. He also cropped images in unconventional ways. He pushed the boundaries of legibility and really annoyed the establishment while becoming a source of inspiration for a younger generation of designers. Overall, he was controversial in the early 1990s. His designs bordered on chaos. This is one of his most famous quotes from a lecture series that you can actually watch on YouTube. Refer to the module guide for links. Fred Woodward became the art director of Rolling Stone in 1987. Bold and daring typography was a hallmark of his work. This was a breakthrough design, this one particular here on screen, which made a strong statement about Sinead O'Connor. This layout changed the look and the feel of Rolling Stone. He preferred not to use a typeface more than once. He wanted Rolling Stone to be a magazine that constantly reinvents its design in response to content. This spread shows how the typeface, its treatment, and color palette in the image all emerged from associations with the article. Blocky sans serif letters evoke Russian constructivism, while reversed B's, R's, and the letter K mimic the Cyrillic alphabet used in Russia. Visual cohesiveness between type and image is achieved as both are constructed from broad, flat shapes of interlocking color. This layout about David Letterman achieves a wonderful cohesiveness between type and image. In the mid-1990s, personal computers and the internet launched the information age. Wired was a magazine that became the face of the new digital generation. This was a map for the emerging information highway. The magazine's machine-age aesthetic design debut was an overnight success. An explosion in the release of new typefaces happened in the 1990s as large type vendors were joined by independent type foundries set up in studios and individual designers. Adobe Systems was an important digital type foundry. Carol Twombly and Robert Smith were two great typeface designers at Adobe. Matthew Carter was another designer who had an extensive background in metal type and was inspired by Herb Lubalin. He enjoyed a long association with linotype. He designed these typefaces based on earlier models. Standardization and interchangeable parts became the norm of the Industrial Revolution, and the Digital Revolution was almost the opposite in the sense that it promoted individualism, flexibility, and customization. New font design applied across the board to all languages. This is a beautiful example called Frutiger Arabic, created in 2004. Let's talk about digital imaging now. Here are some of the examples from the 1980s of electronic montages. Photography was knocked off its pedestal as the undisputed documentation of reality by electronic imaging software. Boundaries between different areas of art began to dissolve. At first, access to image manipulation systems was very costly, so the designer could only pay a technician directly and not work on the actual system. So before the invention of the Macintosh, access to this technology was really limited. This MTV press cover kit by Pat Gorman of Manhattan Design was done in 1982 is an early example of the image invention made possible by computers. She basically created this by experimenting with editing controls in a TV studio. This brings us to the World Wide Web and interactive media. Interactive media is a combination of audio, visual, and cinematic communication connected to form a coherent body of information. They are constructed in a non-linear way. You can make unlimited revisions, so content can be added or can be modified. I want you to be able to define this term. Visibility is a wonderful example of interactive CD-ROM programs that teaches concepts relating to visual perception and helps users develop visual awareness as an early example of interactive media. I want you to be able to tell me how has interactive media progressed from this early example. In 1990, Tim Berners-Lee at the European Organization for Nuclear Research in Geneva, Switzerland, came up with HTML and HTTP, the building blocks of internet communication. HTML was first used for scientific purposes, but by 1994, the first web browser, Netscape, was developed, allowing for commercial use of the web. The early years of web design were constraining on graphic designers. Think back to the early days of TV. What do you think some of the limitations were? Also, many feared declining standards of design. Here are a few of the early pioneers. Interactive media took a giant leap for mankind with the development of the World Wide Web. In 1991, legislation was introduced which widened internet access to schools, colleges, and business organizations. By 1997, over 30 million users in more than 100 countries were linked together in a global community, and a website a minute was being created. To paraphrase the textbook, an explosion of information and easy access to the internet occurred. Needless to say, the internet represents an unprecedented advance in human communication. The early years of web page design were constraining for graphic designers. They feared a degeneration of standards. HTML had limitations, and access to web page design was very limited by a few people. So, the Discovery Channel's website design, done by Jessica Helfand, was actually a design model. The three goals of the design program were effective visual identity, functional wayfinding through the website, and editorial presentation of broadcast programs. It was a beautiful example for future web designers to follow. Interactive media allowed small firms and individuals to communicate well with audiences and market products or services. This is shown by the Font Boy interactive type catalog designed by Bob Auffeldish. On the main screen, letter forms floated randomly in space, and they stopped when the cursor is placed on them. Auffeldish began this project because he felt that there was still room for experimentation in font design. With access to personal computers now almost universal, the control of text and images has become the domain of any designer. Many designers use the computer to explore the endless possibilities of the digital process. This work is an excellent example of the designer's ability to use the new technologies rapidly to illustrate and create revolutionary artwork. In this hotbot layout, the concentric circles became navigational links on the web, and for this other one, you see a fantastic layering of many different elements to achieve the final layout. This brings us to the next digital design area, and I will start with a question. Guess what it is? Can you guess what this is? Of course you can. Design for devices is linked directly to the development of the devices themselves and the technologies that support the device. Apple is obviously the pioneer in this area. Need I say more? Apple has almost single-handedly changed the way the world communicates and interacts with technology. Apple has, by virtue of the devices it has designed, also changed how designers interact with the technology they design for. Take album covers, for instance. In 1991, the first iPod came out and put instant demands on the designer for cover art. Then we have to consider design considerations for the explosions of apps as a result of this new technology. Fast forward to 2010 and the release of the first iPad. Once again, Apple has revolutionized design for portable technology and impacted communication graphically between the technology and the end user. It has also affected the print industry and is reinventing how we continue to obtain information and are entertained. Film titles and TV shows rapidly integrated graphic design, motion, and interactive media as seen in these examples. We're going to talk about new typographic expression now. And I have two words for you, and those two words are Paula Scher. Paula Scher has been and still is a major force in graphic design. As a matter of fact, she is one of my favorite designers. More recently, her typography has been seen in urban landscapes on the sides of streets and buildings. Here are some examples of her typographic posters, and here are some examples of her environmental typographic work. The computer really aided designers like Paula Scher to contribute to typographic expression in a very illustrative and unique way. Around the world, we see many examples of digital typographic expression. Here are a few examples from the text that I have highlighted. I am more interested in the process here than knowing all of the designers. This artist, Suyuchi Nogami, creates posters using expressionist typographic form. This artist combines photography and letters. In this image, using symmetrical overlapping letter forms, the artist deftly suggests the ascending elegance of, can you guess what it is? The Glasgow style. His work is an example of elegant and poetic blend of Western and Eastern design ideals. Jennifer Morla's work has garnered international acclaim. A hallmark of her design is the ability to combine business savvy with aesthetics. Her work is even in the permanent collection of several museums. She has experience in many different areas of design: branding, print, packaging, motion graphics, typography, and environmental design. Michael Beirut is another modern design legend. He is a partner in Pentagram Studios' New York office. His work with the international typographic style is compelling and brings new life to this tried and true design school. Can you see the grid? Experimental typographic expression is still practiced with vigor in the Netherlands. The author of our text even finds it hard to pick out some of the outstanding. Experimental typographic expression is still practiced with vigor in the Netherlands. The author of our text even finds it hard to pick out some outstanding designers to put in his own book because there are so many and the work coming out of the Netherlands is so fantastic. Here are a couple examples showcasing the international influences practiced by designers in the Netherlands. Despite all this technology, designers are still using and turning back to traditional methods and techniques. One such area is in a revival of letterpress printing. Here are a few modern examples of this ancient art form. Be sure to refer to our modular guide for links to the Hamilton Wood Type Museum in Wisconsin. Here's a couple more examples of letterpress printing. And to conclude, new technologies are meeting with new designers as we begin to further expand on the possibilities the digital environment offers to the design community. But the methodologies and theories of design are timeless. My hope is that you enjoy this class and that what you have taken away from the class will be an inspiration to you as a graphic designer. When you download the PowerPoint presentation from the module guide, you will be able to access all the links that are on this particular presentation. And so really take some time to go through these links and to learn a little bit about some of these legends in design who have shaped our craft. And someday maybe your name will be up on these lists and you'll have somebody looking at a movie about you. So take inspiration from it and go out into the world and be creative and design.